Berenstein,
Here.
Bertrand, Rayford,
Here.
Shaner, Scott.
Here, can we stand for a moment of silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up is Seth Major. Arthur J. Gallagher, Area Vice President, will be presenting Janelle Bertrand and Janet Fuller with the Best in Class Employer Award. Sounds like a big deal here.
It is, actually.
Any money with it or just a plaque?
If it's in your budget, absolutely. We can make that happen. So Seth Major with Gallagher Benefit Services. I've been with Gallagher for almost 16 years, and I've had the opportunity to work with Janelle, Janet, and their team just for this past year. With the best-in-class employer, I'll just give you the 5 quick trends. Investing more in employer-paid benefits, so basically over 30% of the total rewards or your total compensation is going towards this, which you guys are. Maximizing flexibility with self-insuring, which you guys are as well. Offering a variety of benefits to meet team members' needs. Have a strategy for improving employee engagement and providing a robust retirement benefits to support. So those are the 5 main criteria that you guys have met. Janet, I believe, filled this out last year, and this is one of 2 that I have the opportunity to give away to, so it's pretty exciting for me as well. Again, in 16 years, I think I've given a total of 8 away. This is a very cool honor. We get to go through Gallagher with 70,000 employees and show who is our best-in-class employers, and you guys are one. So congratulations to your team, and congratulations to the city for having such a wonderful benefit program. I do have an award I can give you if you'd like, or not.
Come on, ladies.
Or I can bring it home. Yeah. So if you want to talk about budgets, Bob, this is not very big in our budget. So
The thought that counts.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to interviews for boards and commissions, Parking and Skywalk System Board of Trustees, Mackenzie Heiser. Mackenzie, come up and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to serve.
Good afternoon, Mackenzie Heiseroth. So I work for the Sioux City Community School District, and so I also park in the parking ramps and use the Skywalk systems daily. I see firsthand how important the accessibility and safety and functionality of those systems are. And our location downtown also means that these systems matter not only to our staff, but also to the students and to the community members that visit us frequently. And so I think I offer a unique perspective in that and hope to bring that to the board.
Thanks for your interest. Appreciate your background. And
This would be Anthony Gall's spot, basically, because he had to
Yes.
get off, right?
Correct.
great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Parks and Rec Board, Evan Paulsma, I hope I said that right.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Evan Paulsma. I am a construction worker for L&L Builders, also a former guardsman down at the 185th. I would like to join the Parks and Rec Board. My family loves the Siouxland facilities. We love using them every year, summer, winter, fall, spring. And with my experience in construction, I'd like to bring maybe some advice to the board and see what we can do to help keep the Siouxland community good to go.
Questions?
How many spots are available in this?
There are 2 vacancies
Okay, great.
And two applications is all at this time?
at this time, just the 2.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Aaron Whitmer?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Aaron Whitmer.
Aaron.
Hey, I've lived here for 20 years. Our family calls Sioux City, our home forever. My wife and I both work from home, so we could pretty much choose anywhere. But we love Sioux City, and we love the Parks and Rec, and I think we like using all the facilities, and I just want the opportunity to give back to the community and, help keep Sioux City, growing and a great place to live.
This is one of the boards and commissions that's enjoyable to be on. Not that most aren't, but this is a fun and exciting. There's really a quality of life aspect to it that shows a lot of interest, so I appreciate your interest.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to items 3 through 12, Jay, I'm sorry. Those are the consent agendas. You can consider that they have passed unanimously unless a separate roll call vote's asked for by a council member. If you want to speak on one of these items, please come up as I read it. If you want to speak on an item not on the agenda, please come up under citizen concerns. I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
3 is a reading of the January 9th and 12th city council minutes.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yep.
Before they come to us, especially the January 9th minutes, which tend to be a lot of staff input and direction, does staff have a chance to look at those and approve them before they get to us?
The minutes?
The minutes.
No, they see them at about the same time, at least as of now.
When you send them out, do you ask staff to review them to make sure they're comfortable with the description of, especially with regard to the legislative day, because it's so much about the presentation that's being made. The minutes from the regular meetings, it's our responsibility. We know the agenda, we control the agenda, but on the legislative presentations or some of those one-offs, because there's so much more related to staff input and direction, I would prefer that rather than reviewing them in a consent agenda like this, I'd like to know that staff's reviewed and hasn't suggested any changes before we approve them this way.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, 4 is a resolution designating Rick Bertrand as one of the city council members on the Woodbury Community Information and Communication Commission. 5 is a resolution accepting a donation from the Parks and Rec Foundation for Destination Iowa funded trail projects. Still got money in that account, Matt? Okay. 6 are actions relating to grants. A is a resolution authorizing Parks and Recreation to apply for an IDNR Clean Vessel Act grant for a pump-out boat with the marina.
Matt, question. So if you get the grant, are you obligated, and what is the cost of the vessel itself? If you're getting a $150,000 grant, I assume you don't believe you get all of the $150,000?
Matt Salvatore, Parks and Recreation Director. There'd be matching, 25% matching funds, so it'd be 50. And then we'll see if we get it and make a decision that time.
Okay, so we're not, if we get it, we're not obligated
to accept it.
And you think there's a market for?
Could be a revenue source.
Okay.
Yeah.
B is a resolution approving an IRA Iowa Tree Planting Grant Program's subrecipient grant agreement with the IDNR for the purchase of trees.
How many how many trees does this purchase? Thanks, Kelly.
Kelly Bach, Park Superintendent. The amount is unknown right now. We're looking at investing into the downtown area. We've identified with Reagan from Downtown Partners, I believe we need to increase. We had about 57 trees downtown identified. The remainder balance will be spent in Riverside. Some of those trees are getting a little older, and investing in the riverfront as a lot of the cottonwood trees are starting to show their toll after multiple flood events on the riverfront. So we're planning those 3 areas to hit very hard this next 2 years with the grant.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kelly.
C is a resolution approving a HUD General Depository Agreement with U.S. Bank of Minneapolis, Minnesota. 7 are actions relating to agreements and contracts. A is a resolution approving a contract to Linhart Construction for the Tyson Event Center Plaza Slab Void Remediation Project. B is a resolution approving a post-construction stormwater management plan maintenance agreement and easement with Sacred Heart Catholic Church for a detention basin and accepting the permanent easement of 5010 Military Road. C is a resolution approving a change order number 2 to the contract with the critical pipeline repair for the 12th Street and Floyd Boulevard Storm Sewer Repair Project.
Mayor, can I ask a couple questions on that? Just to get some understanding, are we paying for losses and not improvements with that?
Gordon Fair, city engineer. What was your question?
Well, my question is, so we're paying for losses, right? And not improvements.
That's correct.
Okay. And,
Losses because they had to move off-site and to move back on.
and do we know, can you just give me some background on what happened or what's going on with that?
There's a water main project on a uphill from this. This is a storm drain project where they have to go actually inside underneath Floyd and 12th approximately. And that water line project had to do a lot of flushing that was ending up in this location, so they couldn't do their job. Their job was to line the pipe.
Okay, and so they couldn't do it because it wasn't flushed, or?
No, because the water main was being flushed and the water was ending up in their storm drain, and they couldn't put the liner in the storm drain because of the water. So they had to move off-site and come back later.
And so we didn't anticipate this before, or, I'm just trying to
No,
understand.
this was not anticipated. It was a miscommunication
Okay,
in this one.
okay. And so how do we, going forward, how do we prevent, I guess, these losses? Or,
Have water main breaks. And that's the problem.
So that's what it would be, just to, hopefully they'll be coming back here soon to do this while it's dry.
and so, and I'm just looking at, so it's a change order number, so we've had 2 change orders to that contract.
That's correct.
All right, thanks. I'm just trying to get some.
What was the miscommunication, Gordon?
On that one, the pipeline contractor didn't know that the flushing was going on at that time, and vice versa. They didn't know that downstream that's where the water was ending up, because it is considerably out of the area. So it just ended up there.
Crazy pipeline that runs through the Cargill site, right?
Yes, it's a huge pipe. It's like a 6-foot pipe, along with another 5-foot pipe next to it. We've actually had a 36-inch temporary pipe washed down through their full length one, like 20 feet long. It ended up there.
Thanks, Gordon.
D is a resolution approving a contract to Steve Harris Construction for the 8th Street Reconstruction Project, Douglas Street to Jackson Street. E is a resolution approving amendment number 1 to the consulting services agreement with DGR Engineering for the Lions Park Investment Area Sidewalk and Overlay Project. 8 are actions.
Question, Mr. Mayor, on that one. This is a good spot for this question. So I'm going to play dumb on this because I don't know. So when it comes to our engineering, like from who we award it to and everything, is it still bid or not? Or we just, how do we award that? It's still bid through the different companies? When's the last time we got a rate sheet from any of these guys? Do they provide rate sheets? When was the last time?
Every time we sign a contract, we get a rate sheet with it.
When was the last one?
But this
This one-
project?
Just in general. I just sit there, we look at all this stuff that comes through and I just see kind of the same 2 or 3 firms every time, which is fine. I get that comfort. But we kind of it seems like that the city kind of olays the engineering, like it's just, that's part of doing business. And have we done, do we have a process in place to do comparatives to other communities or with rates, what they're charging us? Are we auditing these? How are we auditing? We're really busy, but I'm just curious on the engineering side of it. How do we know that we're getting value, not just comfortable?
For most of our projects, we will do an RFQ
Yep.
for them, and at that point, we pick an engineer, and if we just look at their price, which they include the rate structure, their rates, at that point, we can pick them or not pick them.
On average, how many do we get from how many different engineers?
Depends on the project. Just today, I'm reviewing one for only 2 engineering firms applied. Normally, we'll get anywhere up to 7.
So they give you block bids, or are they doing it hourly, or what, how do they do
We
it?
cannot bid.
What's that?
We cannot bid this out.
No, I meant with the engineers. I mean, when you get their number, how do you receive it? Just a block, or are you receiving it hourly, or is it?
We'll see both. We'll see them both. We'll see them like a block, like for this task, it'll be this much money, this task will be another. Others will be hourly rates. Either way, they still include their hourly rate structure at the back of the.
I'm not trying to create work. I'm just kind of curious, from an hourly perspective, have we done any type of a local comparative with other firms, other communities? And when's the last time we actually, I'm not picking on any one firm. I'm just saying, we look at, it's a ton of money. And I was speaking to other members and kind of how they've always done it. And when I hear this is how we've always done it, I always get a little nervous as I just see big numbers come in from the same firms. And I'm just asking, when's the last time we've asked, can you give us a little price update on where we're at?
I've actually asked that from contractors or from the consultants themselves. Yes, I've done it multiple times. I couldn't tell you the last.
Is there resources out there we can look to do some comparatives?
We actually
hourly
compare to the last one we did. If we get a project like the one I'm looking at now, we'll look at that. We'll compare to one that we've done that's similar and compare.
Yeah, but I mean, with the same firm. I mean, they got their numbers dialed in. I mean.
It won't necessarily be the same firm.
Okay.
We'll look at the different firms that do apply.
Do me a favor. All I'm asking is that we're going to start putting a little more scrutiny on the engineering side of it. I'm not picking on anybody, on any engineer in particular, but you look at the costs on engineering on some of this stuff, and we just kind of lay it blindly. And maybe it's time that the council starts doing a little more oversight on the engineering side of it. I know we have to have them. We have to farm a lot of this out, it sounds like. And maybe we don't at some point. Maybe we think about sending it all out. But we need to justify kind of what they're charging at some point. We're gonna, if that's.
And to be honest with you, we do review.
Well, I'm sure you do, but I mean, I'd just like to see some comparative data, and do we ever ask, squeeze it down, it's too much?
Yeah.
Okay.
Done that multiple times.
Well, I guess the city's running good then, good job. So, we're good.
On a deal like this, though, you already know what their hourly rate is, so you're just asking them for their hours, basically.
Yep. Yeah.
They're not giving you a new rate card for this after they've already given you one to start.
Correct. Jill Wanderscheid, Neighborhood Services Manager. Yes, this is a little bit of a different situation because these additional costs will be incurred by the bonding company because
Is it
of
the default?
the issues, yeah.
It what?
This is related to the Lions Park project that didn't get completed, and so we filed a claim with the bonding company, and we're moving through that process right now. So the additional engineering costs, as well as any additional construction costs, will be filed with that claim.
What was the original bid that he gave in on that?
The construction side,
Yeah.
about 1.2 million,
So he's 1.2, and he came up, what percentage of the project did he get done?
about 30-some%.
30%, yeah. And so we immediately go after his bond on this? Does he get a chance to rebid this, or does he? I know there's more history on this, but I'm just wondering, it just seems like we're hammering this guy pretty good.
Yeah, so we had several meetings with him. We also meet there biweekly to go through the process or the progress. So there were some timing issues throughout the entire project. It wasn't a surprise to him. We met with him because it was so far behind, and we have another overlay project that's happening this summer there. We want to make sure, and we have federal dollars into this, we want to make sure that it's done. And because he was so far behind, we were concerned about getting this project done by the time the overlay project needed to start next
So
year.
is the bond number you put up there, is that just I mean, he's only going to get charged, bond's only get paid the difference, right?
Yes, correct.
It seems like
Who was the
you're
bond?
hitting-
Not the rest of the
It seems like you're
project.
hitting his bond pretty hard.
Who was the bonding company?
Merchant, I'd have to look, that's back at my desk.
Probably. And they're paying?
So I've been communicating with the bonding company. As of today, we're submitting all of the information that they've requested, and then we need to wait until we actually rebid the project to get that dollar amount to finish the claim.
That's to determine
Don't
the
be quick.
damages.
Promise you that.
But do you see where I'm going with the whole engineering?
Yeah.
With a bond, with a rate card, I mean, it's kind of like when, your roof, you find 3 guys that give you a roof bid, you tend to find the guy that gives you the high one to turn in. I mean, it's kind of, I'm just saying we got to have some oversight on this. I don't think it's fair to this guy a little bit. I think he's getting.
This, Rick, this one is a first for most of us. We've never had to go after a bonding company for lack of I'm not saying it hasn't happened, I'm just saying it hasn't happened with me, where the contractor hasn't performed.
This would be the second one for me, and the last one was in 2014, so it doesn't happen very often at all.
Yeah.
I just get nervous because it seems like you're just kind of giving them a blank check, and all of a sudden guys see that you put a number out there of whatever, and
The bonding company will audit it. They're not gonna just write it.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. They're gonna, yeah, so.
they'll scrutinize the numbers, and I think you're going to scrutinize it at your
They're
level.
not,
They'll
they're not
scrut-
paying next week, I can guarantee you that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A is a resolution approving a payment to Crane Sales and Service for repairs to a Ford F-550 bucket truck used by Park Maintenance. B is a motion approving a list of the total expenses for 2025. 9's actions relating to property. A is a resolution proposing to sell property adjacent to 513 Collins Street and rescinding all conflicting resolutions of petitioner's executive properties. B is a resolution proposing sell certain property commonly known as 24 and a half J Avenue. The petitioners, the trustees of the Todd and Galena Pedersen Revocable Trust.
Ask a question on this one, just who has this?
1 second, Craig. I think I don't know that I still do it as tax return, but I have in the past, so I need to abstain. Go ahead.
McMorgan, City Real Estate.
Only question I've got is typically, when you have your formula price, does it take into account some of the defects to the property, whether it's an alleyway or right-of-way or otherwise? Do you take into, does the formula price typically take into account? Because here, you've asked for $1,500. They're offering $500 because there's required work, I think trees and brush and debris. Typically, would your formula price take those things into account already or not?
Not necessarily. One of the main things is whether or not the lot is buildable. And if it's not buildable, then we do give a discount for it. So the price is, we came up with the price, we sent it to them, and then they basically said they didn't want to pay that, so we had them give us a counter offer price, and we took that into consideration.
You think $500 is fair and reasonable?
It's a tough piece of ground because it's landlocked, entirely surrounded by them. We've had trees fall that we've had to get right of entries in the neighboring properties to get to, so it's a tough piece.
Thank you.
C to E are items 9, C to E are resolutions authorizing the release of mortgages with Siouxland Habitat for Humanity in connection with the construction of single-family housing units at 2103, 2107, 2111 Myrtle Street. 10 are purchasing. A is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Cornhusker International Trucks for 2 plow trucks. B are resolution awarding a purchase order to Stu Hansen Dodge for 2 Dodge Tradesman's V plows. And 11 are applications for alcohol licenses, and 12 are board, commission, and committee minutes. Anyone else to be heard on any of those items? Voting electronically, or
Yes.
want to put it up for us?
Oh, that would be helpful, wouldn't it? There you are.
You got to come to the microphone, I'm sorry, and state your name, please.
My name is Angela Warner. I'm just a resident of Sioux City, but I don't really know, I'm unfamiliar with this process, but I do have it goes along with grants and funding and allocate whatever.
You'll have to come up under citizen concerns if it's not one of these agenda items.
Okay, so it's citizens concern.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So where to do that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Passes 4-0. Recommendations of P and Z and Board of Adjustment. 13 is a motion acknowledging the Board of Adjustment actions of June 13th. I'll move that.
Second.
Anything for the good of the order?
I don't. Andrew Gleiser, Planning and Zoning Chair. Do you guys have any questions? We are the fun board, by the way.
Only because you're in charge.
Well, your meetings can be exciting, that's for sure.
Figured you'd be out storm patrol today.
I opted out.
4-0, how many you got out of town?
None locally, 10 company-wide.
14 is a motion authorizing staff to negotiate an agreement with the University of Iowa Office of the State Archaeologist for National Register nomination for the historic Pearl Street District. I'll move that.
Second.
About 10 years after we started, we're finally getting there, Wade. That a boy. No, you're good. Passes 4-0. 15 is a hearing and ordinance rezoning 1516 Geneva Street. The petitioner's Gregory Malak. P and Z recommends approval. I'll move that.
Second.
Public hearing's now open.
Passed 7-0 on planning.
Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 4-0. Anybody opposed to waiving the statutory rule? I'll move that.
Second.
Bertrand.
Aye.
Rayford.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Berenstein.
Aye.
Move second and third. Need a second.
Second.
Rayford.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Berenstein.
Aye.
Bertrand.
Aye.
16 is a hearing and resolution approving plans and specs for the construction of the central maintenance garage vehicle and CO-NO2 exhaust project. I'll move that.
Second.
Hearing is now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 4-0. 17 is a hearing and resolution approving plans and specs for the fiber optic project. I'll move that.
Second.
Hearing's now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed.
One quick question. The title of this is the 2026 fiber optic project. Is these all the items that would be in the fiber optics
This is,
capital plan for 2026, or is this a portion of them?
well, is this the one where you kind of changing or doing the riverfront wells or something?
Yes.
Excuse me, yes. So this is part of the fiber optic work plan that we had in our CIP, but it's also comes from, a portion of it is also for the water wells
Okay.
on their CIP.
Okay.
Passes 4-0. 18 is a hearing and resolution determining an area of the city to be a blighted area designated such as appropriate for the urban renewal project and adopting amendment number 3 to the amended and restated Donner Park Urban Renewal Plan, the property at 2501 Expedition Court. I'll move that.
Second.
Public hearing's now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed.
So we get ready to vote on this. I do want to commend, Bob, you and Julie and the prior council members. And the chamber. This is a great project for our community. And, it's easy for us to sit here today and continue to move this project along, but prior council needs to be recognized and commended for the work that you've done, and congratulations.
Passes 4-0. 19 is a resolution approving an economic development assistance contract with Sioux Honey Association, the Iowa Economic Development Authority, the property at 301 South Lewis Boulevard. I'll move that.
Second.
Passes 4-0. 20 is a hearing and resolution accepting the proposal of MD Southern and Steve Gordon and Bethany Manning Trust for the purchase of certain land in the combined Floyd River Urban Renewal Area and authorizing the negotiation of a development agreement. I'll move that.
Second.
Public hearing's now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 4-0. 21 is a resolution amending the authorized personnel complement, the position classification manual, and the salary schedule by adding an EMS training officer and an EMS lead medic and reclassifying the emergency medical technician and lead medical training officer to EMS training officer class and reclassifying 3 emergency medical technicians, lead medic, training officers to EMS lead medics. Move to delete that item.
Second.
Anyone to be heard? Okay.
Scott,
Aye.
Berenstein,
Aye.
Bertrand,
No.
Rayford.
Aye.
Would you guys mind if, is it possible we go citizen concerns so that people don't have to wait for this other stuff, or do we got to do the order? Got to do the order. Okay, Parks property overview.
It isn't.
Here?
I think so.
All right. I'm going to make it work just like this. Matt Salvatore, Parks and Recreation Director. I wanted to first kind of do an overview of our Parks and Recreation Department and show how we rank nationally versus other Parks and Recreation departments. Reviewing statistics from our department versus National Recreation and Park Association standards. So in Sioux City, we have 1,639 residents per park. The national standard is 2,411, so we're well above that. I've quoted this statistic before. In Sioux City, we have 11.7 parks per 1,000 residents. The NRPA standard is 10.2. I'd also like to mention overall of all the acres that we maintain in Sioux City, that number is 25. Miles of trail. We've added a lot of trails over the years. We managed 41.94 miles of trail. The NRPA standard is 17. Full-time equivalents. This is based on upcoming operating numbers. Sioux City's at 67.62. The NRPA standard is 74.71. Again, based on proposed numbers for this year, operating expenditures for our departments roughly 8.7. The NRPA standard is 9 million. Revenue comparison, so we generate approximately 2.7 worth of in revenue annually, where the NRPA standard is about 2.5. And our expense recovery is 31.3% based on the NRPA standard of 27.2. So in a lot of categories, we rank higher than the national average and have a huge inventory of parks. This is, again, a map of all the areas that we maintain within the city. And here's a breakdown of all the acres that we maintain, mostly being parks. So that's just a quick overview. Now I'm going to jump into some of the properties that we examined. Some of them were existing. Some of them are new within the last couple of weeks, opportunities for development, and then opportunities where maybe we can update our existing amenities.
Matt, can I ask one quick question?
Yeah.
On your cemeteries, some are managed by management companies or private companies, correct?
Yeah, we contract mow one of the 3 cemeteries.
So how does, if you were to take that out in terms of your FTE complement or the financial costs, how does that affect your numbers?
The contract number is not factored into our FTE number. Good question. Okay, I'm going to jump right in some of the parks that I had a chance to look at within the last couple of weeks and opportunities for development. Now, the first one is Carlin Park. Now, this isn't actually the park itself. It's up above the park. It's approximately 0.9 acres. The comments from engineering is that maybe 6 lots could be platted. Tyler Street would have to be vacated, and the sanitary sewer would have to be extended about 100 feet, and a detention basin for stormwater would have to be waived. So I can jump through slide by slide, rapid fire, or if you have any questions, you can stop me as we go. Just let me know.
This would not require retention, Gordon?
Depending on the number of homes and the size of those,
You're proposing 6.
yes, but I mean, if we decide to go with small or larger lots, it should have one.
So in Carlin Park, you can tie in existing infrastructure basically without that one extension for 6 homes.
No, other than that one extension, yes, that's correct.
No retention. You don't have to do any upgrades on the water lines because we're breaking ground. We have to take it to a 12, right? We're good? We can tie in?
Yeah, it's just the sanitary that needs to be extended.
Perfect.
Next one, Chautauqua Park. This was actually vacated in 2024. It's approximately 3.9 acres. This is possible private development.
Nothing's happening there for why we vacated it?
No, I think economic development has some things in the works, at least been having some discussions.
We vacated that whole park?
No, just that highlighted portion to the north.
Is the thought
Right here.
commercial activity, light industrial,
I believe it'd be a barge.
barge?
Barge,
And that's, discussion's been held before, right?
Yes.
yes.
Next one's Coles Edition. This was technically called a park, but it's not really a park. It's just a green space that the Parks and Recreation Department mows. Approximately 1.5 acres, and it was vacated last year for residential development. Engineering's comments is 5 to 6 lots could be platted, 50-foot lot widths minimum, or sanitary sewer would have to be extended. Otherwise, no utilities would be needed, but some sanitary repairs are needed. A detention basin for stormwater would have to be waived. Neighborhood Services said this has been vacated and will be offered for sale via RFQ process in the spring of 2026.
So neither Carlin nor Coles needs any concrete, right, Gordon?
That's correct, no concrete.
Perfect, thank you.
This next one is some things that we've been working on. Last year, we identified a portion of Combe Park, about 3.5 acres for private development. And then last year, a portion of the parking lot, Lewis and Clark Park, there was a development agreement executed for the Siouxland Sports Academy. Cook Park, we identified last year approximately 2.5 acres. It was vacated for affordable housing. Engineering comments may need some utility installations depending on layout of new housing and will need easement to prevent building over the top of existing water and sewer pipelines. This easement is estimated 25 feet wide, centered over utilities. Neighborhood Services applied for LIHTC funding in 2025. They were unsuccessful, but applying again in March of 2026. We'll find out in August if awarded. If not awarded, it would be recommended for demolishment.
You're talking the old Webster School.
Amphitheater, yes.
Webster School.
Yep. Goldie Beck Park. So this was one of the more interesting ones when I was doing my investigation and research. The corner of the park there, it's about 1.7 acres. If developed, there'd be an opportunity to update some of the existing park amenities. Engineering comments is there's a 6-inch water main that runs through it and will need an easement to prevent building over it. This easement estimated to be 25 feet wide, centered over the water main. 7 to 8 lots could be platted, but a detention basin for stormwater would have to be waived. Headed Park.
Gordon, so we're saying no retention pond there.
It would have to be waived. Again, it depends on the size of the houses and how much hardscape they're going to have.
There's enough there to do swales and stuff, probably.
Oh, there's enough room to put a basin in, yes.
We don't want the basins like swales and stuff. Not have to do a pond, right?
What the swales would do for you, other than drain the water.
Square footage is all you're looking for.
Headed Park, that was something that's already been in the works. There's a signed LSU with Knife River in 2025 for approximately 50 acres. That complex is going to be relocated. Hillcrest Park, there's approximately 1.6 acres there. Opportunity to update existing amenities in that park. Engineering comments, 5 to 6 lots could be platted. A sanitary sewer would need to be installed in 14th Street from Pacific Street to Rock Street at a cost of about $200,000. A detention basin for stormwater would have to be waived. Highview Park, this isn't actually the park itself, it's east and south of the park. Those lots are approximately 0.6 and 0.9 acres. Engineering's comments is several lots could be platted, 2 for the east, maybe 5 for the south. Right away for War Eagle Drive would have to be adjusted. Existing utilities would need easements to prevent building over them. Houlihan Run is not actually a park, it's just a space maintained by the Parks and Recreation Department. There's about 1.3 acres there. Could be used for residential development. Engineering comments is 5 to 6 lots could be platted, no utilities would be needed. A 25-foot easement would be needed over the existing storm sewer on the west end of the property to prevent building over too close to maintain of the storm. Neighborhood Services said that this will be offered for sale via the RFQ process in spring of 2026. The utility easement has been secured and the appraisal has been received.
Good luck on that one. Developer for that.
Jones Street Community Garden, that's no longer in use. About 0.2 acres across from Dale Street Park. Engineering comments has said about 3 lots could be platted, no utilities are needed. Neighborhood Services said this will be offered for sale via the sealed bid process, reserve price in spring of 2026. Kitty Park is another one that's not really a park anymore. It's just an open green space maintained by the Parks and Recreation Departments. It's a little over an acre. Engineering said about 6 lots could be replatted and homes built. No utilities are needed. Neighborhood Services, this will be offered via for sale via the RFQ process. The site could be used for residential or alternative use as no rezoning has occurred. Home Park, the south portion of the park, there's approximately 0.7 acres there. There could also be an opportunity to update the existing amenities. Engineering comments, maybe 4 lots could be platted, no utilities are needed. Mid-City Park, the west half of the park's approximately 1.2 acres. There could be an opportunity to develop and update the other half of the park.
How would you update the other half of the park, Matt?
There's a shelter, playground, there's a sand volleyball court. I just think it all needs kind of a facelift. It needs to be updated and shifted over. There's been some issues in that park, so I think some redesign or reconfiguration would do that park a lot of good. Might even do good to just kind of condense the park. Engineering comments is 1 house could be built on the south side of 8th Street and 3 houses could be built on the north side of 9th Street. There's sanitary and water in a vacated portion of Virginia Street and a storm pipe on the west end of the property. On the north side connecting to 9th Street, existing utilities would need easements to prevent building over them or too close for maintenance of the utilities. Neighborhood Services mentioned this could be a CBDG improvement project in about 3 years. The area qualifies. Normandy Park, which is really just a vacant parking lot. It was acquired to be a future park, but never developed. There's approximately 0.4 acres of open space. Have to keep the other portion open near the creek. Engineering said there's room for about 4 residential lots.
Also zone commercial.
Yeah, we'd have to check the zoning as well. Smith Villa, there's approximately 1/4 of an acre of open space there. That park is in need of updating, so an opportunity to update existing amenities. Engineering said 2 homes could be platted fronting West 18th Street. Ruby Street cannot be vacated because of the neighborhood still utilizing it. Last one is Spalding Park. I don't know why it's called Spalding Park. It's not actually a park. It's just an open green space that we maintain. About 1/2 an acre of open space. Engineering said 3 lots could be built on the south side of 23rd Street and maybe 2 lots from fronting DuPont could be built. So that's about 17 properties that I ran through. Would be happy to answer any more questions about that.
Matt, yeah.
There's still more out there too, right?
There could be, yeah. This was low-hanging fruit.
There's some other stuff out there. Flat.
Yeah, and if council has suggestions on other properties you want me to look at, I'd be happy to do that. This is low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, Matt, this is really good work, and I know that you and I visited about this during the campaign, and we talked about how it was important to try and eliminate some of your burden and try and effectively find properties that could be used either for other quality of life or commercial properties, industrial properties, or possibly housing opportunities. Has your board had a chance to review this and prioritize where you think it would make sense to make these decisions, or have you primarily been working internally with staff and Gordon to understand what would be required? And have you talked to, other than to the mayor's point about looking at the Houlihan Run property, have you talked to other developers about interest in some of these properties and where we might have some commercial opportunity?
I think Neighborhood Services has had maybe some of those conversations. I personally haven't. You bring up a good point. I think public input's going to be a key process to this. I do have it on the agenda for our February Park Board agenda. So I think that we will need to vet that. Some of these are dedicated park properties which need to be vacated by the Park Board before going to planning and zoning. So there's a lot of conversations that need to take place, but this is a first look of just myself and staff working to provide this presentation.
Yeah, this is good work. I think this is very consistent. I know Rick and I have talked, I think this is the direction that I think we wanted to at least initially vet. So I think this is really good work.
Yep. I have some more homework to do, but I haven't quite got there yet. Contract mowing.
So on first, I counted I counted 72 loose lots just right out of there, which is that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like we talked about. I think the big thing is the takeaway here for the public is to know is that we're trying to think bigger, and try to kill a few birds with the same stone, which is to address infill within affordable housing, kind of neighborhood revitalization. But like you and I talked about, a lot of the equipment needs to be turned over. So repurposing, not closing, but repurposing parks, when the trade-off's going to be to the community is newer equipment, it's going to be updated equipment, it's going to be more lighting, it's going to be safer, that you actually can send your kids to not these just monster parks. But it's a nice way from a neighborhood perspective. What I would ask, and Gordon, I want to give you a compliment. Thank you on providing the information that you did. What I most like, and I hope you stick with it, is the flexibility that you're showing when I hear the word waive. When I hear the word, waive certain things when it comes to detention ponds or something like that we can do. Because this doesn't work if as soon as we scratch the surface, if we got to go in there and do full block rehabs, update water lines and all that, it just doesn't work. We have to give the developer an opportunity to go in there and just punch these houses in. It's going to help, and affordable. If you want affordable housing, you got to make them affordable. So I applaud you on that, and I hope that you keep that going and working with this. So the third thing is from a timeline, so we can all sit around and talk about this and twiddle our thumbs, or we can put our foot on the gas like you have and we are doing, and let's get it in front of the Parks Board.
Yep.
And let's keep going. Let's set a timeline that we want to have some action by midsummer, that we can, start putting this in play. Because I think there's other parks that are huge opportunities out there. I think when we drove around, I counted anywhere between 90 and 130 potential lots on relatively small grading and everything. I mean, so you're talking about how many houses do we need in the city, Mr. Mayor? What are they saying?
What's that?
How many houses are they asking for in the city that we need for infill? What's that number up to? That's still, it's like 600 or something like that for affordable. And so, I mean, if we can take off, 20% of it in one swoop with this, it's a pretty big deal. The second thing is on the other properties that you identified, I think you're going to get to that right now, and Craig touched on it, is it's time to start third-partying this out, with the goal being quality of the stuff that we are mowing, consistency of the guys that we're on, they can spend a little more time, and with the goal is to maybe eliminate all the part-time help. So what I would do is you're gauging some of these public spaces, the summer help, I should say, your part-time summer help, is you're gauging this, these spaces, then if we're using whatever vendor like you're using for the cemetery, to gauge it with that idea is what do we need to unload so that we may not have to bring any part-time help on the summer and empower the guys that are there.
Yeah, so that's my next presentation, will be contract mowing.
We're just thinking alike.
Yeah, some of the stuff like cleaning bathrooms, weed eating, cleaning shelters, some mowing, but there are some seasonal jobs that will be hard to completely eliminate, but we can get into this exercise and take a look at it deeper and see what we can do there.
I want the field guys to feel good about themselves. I know they get stressed, they get pressed on spread thin, moving equipment around everything, and I want them to feel good about the park they maintain with consistency, that people look at them and say, man, there's no grass hanging over the curbs, trees are trimmed up, garbages are emptied. I mean, you know what I mean? They're good, friendly spaces again. So, so I applaud what you're doing, and let's keep our foot on the gas, and I look forward to the next part of it.
Okay, thank you.
Public Works?
Thanks, Matt.
Good afternoon. Patrick Simons, Field Services Manager. Tom Pingle, Public Works Director. We were, per your request, I'll try and keep this short. I know there's a lot going on tonight, but just a brief update on the street conditions and some of the tasks and functions that happen down at Field Services. That being said, Field Services, we maintain 685 miles of paved roadways and alleyways. There's roughly 69 miles of unpaved roadways and alleyways. All of this is managed with 68 Field Services employees, and that number includes supervisory and administrative staff, as well as all of our labor force that performs those tasks daily. All of this is achieved with roughly $10.5 million annual operating budget. Within Field Services, we do have a paved streets division, and that is covered by 12 employees on our concrete crew. These numbers that I'm going to show you here are from the last construction season and up to the end of the year. So those 12 employees, they poured 2,100 yards of concrete at 122 locations. 32 of those locations were utility cuts, so those were subsequent to water main breaks. There are contracted jobs for some of the bigger projects, but we will assist utilities in some of the smaller projects. The remaining 18 individuals that are on that asphalt crew, they threw out 1,900 tons of hot mix asphalt and filled approximately 46,000 potholes out on our paved roads and alleyways. The other division that's in our department is the dirt street crew. That consists of 9 individuals. They threw out roughly 5,000 ton of road gravel on those 69 miles that we maintain, and they covered about 12,000 miles while they were maintaining those roadways. Those same 9 individuals also maintain all of our shoulder and ditches that we have to maintain throughout the city. We removed 5,500 cubic yards of material through 17,000 linear feet. So what that includes is the material and sediment that settles in all of our roadways, can impede in stormwater runoff and flood mitigation. Additionally, we have the street cleaning crew. That consists of 8 individuals with our sweepers and flushers. So they removed approximately 12,000 cubic yards of material off of our paved streets, and they covered about 15,000 miles while removing all of that material. A little bit of snow information from our department. With the over 750 miles that we maintain within our system, we have 19 spreader trucks that are equipped with spreaders and plows. Then we have 12 trucks that are just plow trucks alone. They're not equipped with any kind of surface treatments of any kind. Additionally, we have 7 front-end loaders that are equipped with front-end plows. We have dedicated routes for those individuals, but they primarily work in all of the cul-de-sacs, dead-end streets, something that's a little more difficult for all of our big spreader and plow trucks to get into. Additionally, we have 6 motor graders, and that's what maintains those 69 miles of unpaved roadways and then our unpaved alleyways as well. We do provide 24-hour service. Our crews are split up into 2 12-hour shifts, so that way our staff doesn't get overworked, but we can still provide round-the-clock service for our residents. City is divided into 6 major snow routes or areas, and within those areas, all of the streets and alleyways are broken up into a priority of 3 levels of service. The priority 1 streets the majority of them are our emergency routes, arterial streets, and the central business, the downtown area. The priority 2s are our through and collector streets, and that consists of the remainder of the city and school bus routes. And then the priority 3 level streets are our residentials, the cul-de-sacs, dead ends, and alleyways. The city streets, we try to restore back to passable conditions within 72 hours after a 4-inch or greater snowfall. That doesn't mean it's going to be down to bare pavement. It just means it's going to be passable for residents to still get about their daily lives. Safe travel is maintained with a salt sand mixture that we utilize. It's more salt heavy than de-icing sand. The sand is introduced just for traction purposes on some of those hills and shaded areas throughout the community.
I've got half of it in my garage after every snow, so.
Additionally, we do administer a salt brine solution as well. Through the 2025 season, we safely plowed nearly 39,000 miles. We administered roughly 7,500 tons of material, 15,000 gallons of brine, and we currently have on site roughly 2,500 tons of salt in our storage facility as well as de-icing sand.
How much do you keep seasonally?
Our capacity is 5,000.
So you're 50%?
Correct. As
right
of now,
now,
we're approximately 50% with more delivery anticipated.
Oh, okay.
As far as conditions for our roadway that we have right now, our paved and unpaved roadways, I feel, are above average for this time of year due to just the unseasonably favorable weather we've been experiencing lately. So our concrete and asphalt crews, they are still out and continuing just their normal routine when weather conditions allow. And as far as our unpaved roads, they're very stable right now. We still are out blading them as weather allows and per citizen requests. That being said, thank you for your time and answer any questions you may have.
I have a couple questions for you, Pat. When it comes to street cleaning, how far out do you go? Is it just downtown or?
We try to make at least multiple 2 to 3 times around the city, at least once a year, just so every street gets touched and swept up, and that does help with our stormwater, just so we're not having the leaves and the sediment like was touched on that normally goes into garages and whatnot. We're trying to capture that so it's not going down into our waterways.
How many machines or sweepers do you have?
We currently have 4 street sweepers.
I want to commend your teams. They do a great job, and they take a lot of pride in what they do. I know that during the campaign, we had a chance to visit with a number of the teams, and what was more than evident in every visit that we had was the pride that they take and the respect that they deserve. And I know the council does, I know the city does, but I think it's important to recognize that as well. And so thank them and tell them they do a great job.
So like we talked about, I think early on that, this is one of those departments that is why government was made. It's formed, this is I think an essential service, just keep the roads cleared. That was one of the big things I think we all hear when you get on a campaign trail is fix the potholes, keep the snow off. So I guess the first question I have is, councils like to spend money, seems like. Or do you have everything you need so that the next 4 years I don't get a phone call about how the snow didn't get removed? I mean, do you have what you need?
Obviously, everybody's going to say we need more staff, more equipment, everything that goes along with that, but I feel we're comfortable where we are right now. As you see and you're out driving around in the area, our equipment is aging, but I think we've implemented a process that I think that we're going to start working through that, and I think we're on the right track now.
If I can add to that, if there is any pressures, it's probably down south where we've extended the city, over time. That's probably, that's route is a long route.
I would agree.
No route.
So the next one, because that's huge, is just the snow part of it. People expect, not like 24 hours. They expect it to be done, and you guys have done a great job. It's been a great winter. So you're talking about gravel roads. So I'm going to go down the list of what people have called me about. And this is kind of close to home, too. So we have 69 miles of gravel road, and we throw 5,000 ton on them. So what do you call people that live on gravel roads?
What do I call people?
What do people call people that live on gravel roads? Taxpayers, right?
Right.
So our goal in the next what I'd like to see this next council too, is that we're obviously not going to pave these roads. They've become priced out. That's not going to happen. So I think that we owe the people on gravel roads. They pay taxes. I know they get a little break supposedly on their taxes, but to put those roads, and for the most part, I like the graders are good and stuff, but I think we need to see a more concentrated effort on kind of what the county does when it comes to the road. I know we like to save a little money on the gravel, but I think I'd like to see a little more focus on the people that live on gravel roads. And you can put gravel on my road last, if that helps. Or I'll put a little on for myself. The other question I had about the gravel is, this is another thing that came up several times. It's not a shot, but where do we get our gravel? And do we truck it with the little small dump trucks? And walk me through the logic on that. And
You bet. Currently, our contract that we have is with Halid material.
Yeah.
So we are trucking that in just with the fuel costs that we're trying to average out. The cost per ton, we can still truck it in, and we do have one side dump. It's not all just with our dump trucks. So we utilize that, and that's primarily down in downtime. Like today, when it's cold out, that's when we try to utilize cold days. Inclement weather is when we're hauling that material. But even with the fuel costs and the wear and tear on the equipment, we're still receiving it cheaper than what we would for the next lowest bid.
so we couldn't get a guy to get a couple side dumps in it. You're telling me that from our labor per hour round trip, what's it end up being, about a 220-hour trip, 240-hour trip?
I can get those information.
I think it is. So, you start putting dollars, and I get that it's busy. It's kind of busy work, it's kind of, in there. And this is just kind of, let's start thinking a little bit different. I just can't imagine that with the wear and tear on the trucks, the tires, the fuel. I just can't believe that number. We can't, get a number for side dumps and say, if we need a pile of gravel, let's find an independent guy to give us a really good number when they're down on their downtime.
Yep.
And they can bring us a discounted rate and maybe bring us the gravel, and we don't have to put our man hours and tires and fuel and wear and tear on those tiny trucks. Well, how many yards do them hold?
It depends on the trucks. Most of them are 5 to 7.
7? I was at 7 in my head, so you're looking at 7. That's a lot of spinning of the wheels, and it's busy work. So my question would be is let's review that process. I'm not quite bought into the data that it's costs cheaper to do it that way. I don't buy into that.
So that would just be something that we would have to look at contracting out.
Yeah.
We have looked at.
Sub it out.
Yep, correct. We've looked at some of the other.
Find you guys do something else close where they're not just getting, 6 hours of windshield time on down days.
You got it, yep.
Yeah, that's straight talk on that end of it. And then on the, gravel and the snow. Do they talk to you guys about, the overlay projects that are in place? And that, do they consult you guys at all on the roads on kind of, because I see this list of overlay projects and stuff, and I'm kind of curious on the ranking of it, do they get input from you guys that are actually driving the roads, or who makes those decisions?
Yeah, we'll try and meet multiple times annually with our engineering staff, and we confer with Gordon and all of his staff on the roads that we spend the majority of our time on, and then he tries to overlay those with other projects that are complete reconstructs as well.
I know, Mr. Mayor, you were saying that there was a time when you were earlier that you guys spent a ton of money on overlay, right? And we kind of got out of it?
Correct.
$4 to $5 million a year.
Then that kind of, where'd that go is when we redid all the schools?
They went to these complete streets, and when you do a block of a complete street, it's $1 million.
Yeah.
You do 4 blocks, and that's your asphalt. And meanwhile, more streets are, I understand why they do it, but you're losing the rest of the streets, and that's why you should do $4 or $5 million worth of overlay and hope you don't have water main breaks. That's the problem. You got to weigh it out, but.
Mr. Mayor, that's kind of why I brought up. I completely support, I think we talked about this before, is going back to putting more money. So start, kind of maybe starting to put more plans together. And if this council needs to make a decision that if we don't have the money to do complete replacements, and the way our engineering is set up right now, it's overpriced, we can't do it. So I think overlay is the option, because we, like Mr. Mayor said, we are just flat out losing our streets. And that is another one of those reasons that I think government was formed. So we got to refocus our efforts there, and I would like to go back to what they used to do. And also, I know a lot of those dollars, those capital dollars, went to new schools, around the new schools and everything. So anyway, but keep doing what you're doing, man. And like I said, I'd say this before, you guys are an essential service. Don't feel you're not. And if you need something, great. But also think big, like we talked about every other department. Think big. If there's something you can farm out, free up time to do other things, do it. Present it. That's not a naughty word. It's not going to cost you employees. It's not going to anything. But just you know what I mean.
I do.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, fellas.
Oakview Group, update on operations and Tyson Event Center and the Sioux City Convention Center.
Good afternoon, Chad Smith, General Manager of the Tyson Event Center, Orpheum Theater, and Sioux City Convention Center. This is Nick Palmiotti. He's our Senior Director of Booking and Marketing.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the benefit of our new members, not sure exactly how familiar you are with OVG, but Chad and I are both employees of Oakview Group. OVG manages several hundred public assembly venues, stadiums, convention centers, arenas across the country. And, we're obviously thankful for, the partnership here in Sioux City. Been managing the Tyson Event Center since 2018 and the Convention Center since 2024. Here in Sioux City, we manage the Tyson Event Center, obviously, the Convention Center, the Orpheum Theater. We have a booking agreement with the STF Expo Center, so we book and operate, a number of events at the Expo Center each year. And then OVG Hospitality, our food and beverage arm, operates the concessions at the airport as well. So we're, involved in a number of facilities here in Sioux City. So just to give you an update on some events over the last year, I'm pretty thrilled with, particularly the last 6 months, but 2025, both at the Tyson and at the Orpheum, I thought was really a great year from a programming standpoint. Some of the content we've been able to bring to Sioux City, like Parker McCollum, Gabriel Iglesias, Hailstorm and Lindsey Sterling. That's content that any major market in the country would be happy to have. And I think it was great that we were able to get that to Sioux City. Notably, we did Nate Bargatze in September of last year, which was our highest grossing comedy show at the Tyson in its history. Also, one of the highest grossing events, period, in the history of the building, so that was great. And then, I've just noted we did 97 events in calendar year 2025. I've included some attendance numbers that we've done, over the last handful of months. Again, notably, Nate Bargatze was our, pretty much our biggest single-day performer, which was over 6,000 attended that event. Also, NAI volleyball had over 6,000 attendees. And then, noted here, last year we renewed the NAI volleyball and basketball contracts. Basketball is renewed now through 2029, and NAIA volleyball is renewed through 2028. So I think that's really good news for the city. On the horizon, next weekend, we have The Offspring, which again is another pretty major show that I think any major market, across the country would be happy to have. And then things like the Baumgars Rodeo. This is our third year doing that rodeo, which frankly is one of our biggest events of the year. Typically, we get really close to selling out Saturday night. So I think that type of event really serves an area of the market that's hungry for that type of content. And, I think both from a financial standpoint and from just a attendance standpoint, I think that's been really, really positive.
Nick, I'm pretty sure I heard Ike say that he'd be happy to do a celebrity bull riding that Saturday.
Yeah, right. I'm going to pass on that. I've been face to face with a bull before, and if you guys want to get up there with me, we'll be happy to do that.
I offered Ike. I'm happy to observe.
I'm just going to go over some of the operational highlights in the building. And
Chad, before you do that,
Yeah.
Nick, just a quick question about some of those. Do you guys book and promote those yourself, or do you do somebody outside of it?
So most of the major concerts, we do have partners with us on those. So actually all of the concerts, with the exception of Hailstorm and Lindsey Sterling, we did book and promote that one ourselves. All of the other events, I have a booking partner with, any of the major promoters across the country, whether it be Live Nation, AEG, Outback Presents, we do a lot of business with. So typically, we have a partner that helps us promote it. The way the world is going, and especially since COVID, these major promoters will pick up a string of dates. So typically the agents aren't doing a deal with Sioux City and then a deal with this, city and so on and so forth. They've got a promoter that's picking up the whole tour or 20 dates or whatever. And those are often the people we work with. So I would say, generally speaking, we want to have a partner to help us promote the show. But that's not universally the case. Again, Hailstorm, we did book and promote that independently. But most of our shows, we have a partner.
Do we know if, just based on your numbers, do we know if people are coming from outside of Sioux City to attend these events, or?
That's a good question. I can pull specifics if you're interested in it. For the major shows, we definitely do have some, number of people coming from outside of the city. It can vary from show to show. Using Nate Bargatze as an example, Nate announced a show in Sioux Falls right before we had our show. So we would have a little bit less attendance from Sioux Falls, on a show like that, because they're getting that show. So it can vary a little bit. We definitely try to engage with Omaha and Sioux Falls particularly, and try and get those folks to come to Sioux City. And that can really vary depending on the event. The rodeo is another example. We definitely get a lot of people that come into town from the rural areas around Sioux City that come into town for that. So if you'd be interested to see some details, we can certainly pull that data.
Stacy's probably got a lot of that detail,
Stacy would have a lot of that, for sure. We have a program called Placer AI that allows us to pull some of that data via cell phone device IDs, so we can get pretty specific in that. Also through Ticketmaster, we can get a lot of that data.
If you could get some of that.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I don't want to get ahead of your presentation because maybe you'll address this. And obviously, you've got common interest, but you've got somewhat separate interests in terms of booking and what the facility needs to be, right? So at some point, whether it's today or a further discussion or presentation in the future, I'd like to know what you both think you need from the city. I think the one frustration I've heard regarding all of the facilities, whether it's the Orpheum Convention Center or the Tyson, is that they just don't feel that there are enough big shows. And I think a lot of that ties into the suites and some of the luxury seating that Nick, you and I talked about before. But at some point, whether it's today or, I'd like to know where you think you need us to be a partner to what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's a lot of answers to that question.
I knew it wasn't a single sentence answer.
You know, I think, both with Rick and with you, we talked a little bit about that at the FTAB meeting. There's, from a building standpoint, listen, the building's 25 years old. At some point, it's worth a conversation of what is the long-term vision for that venue, whether it's in need of a remodel or, those sorts of things. I think as far as shows go, there's certainly, tours are interested in places that are nice and new and easy to get
Nick,
out of. Those are sorts of things.
That bridge is kind of where we're going with this and where we asked for it today was, do you guys know how important you are to the city? You don't work for the city, but you actually work for the city, right? I mean, for us. So do you guys realize how important you are to marketing this town? I mean, it's a huge responsibility. The last council rushed out there and spent a bunch of money and bought up the Walgreens parking lot because we're worried about the entrance to the city. And the greatest advertising we have is that board above Tyson that people drive by, and they look and see what shows. And it's like when you're driving through community, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that so-and-so is here. I can't believe the Sioux City is getting this show. And that's the urgency that I really want as we start with this new council, you guys to have, is that sense of urgency, is that if we don't have a big show on that board, you're not doing your job. Because that's the marketing piece of it that we got to have for community morale, for recruitment, is it's got to be the wow factor. And we talked about how to get there. And so on the second side, on the second part of it is, you guys do know how important you are. We talked about the promotion side of it, and what I like to see, we talked about, Nick, we talked about this in your operating budget, is, everybody talks about why did they go to Omaha, why did they go to Denny? Again, they're different facilities, they're different sizes. But you and I know the reason that promoters are skipping us is not because they're not looking at us, it's what's the reason? They're not making money, right? Sioux City's not as profitable as the others. So if you guys if you want to make a commitment to once a quarter that we've got something up on that board that just wows people, that wow, Sioux City's got it, that's to my opinion for this council, that's a marketing investment. So you and I have talked about it, you need some walking around money when it comes to talking to promoters, right? You got to buy down tickets. You got to buy down seats to get these guys here, or they're just going to keep moving. So we're really, we're talking about throwing marketing money here and there. So like we talked about, I'd like to see, and you kind of had a number about 200 grand or something, put it in the budget and make us vote against it. Because that's the money you need to go out and to do your job to promote this town with big name acts that sit on that board. And you said you haven't asked for it like that. You never looked at that from that angle. And just the interactions that I have with some of the promoters, that's you can buy that down. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. And like a lot of times it comes down to dollars and cents. And
not the facility, it's not this or that, it's dollars.
Yep. And Sioux City, obviously a much smaller market than Sioux Falls and Omaha. So yeah, those types of numbers that you're talking about are certainly meaningful to be able to throw those in a pot to make it more attractive.
Because the summer series is cool. I mean, that seems like the Hard Rock's kind of picking up that slack on the summer series. But I mean, I just want you guys to think big, and that goal is that's there's got to be something on that sign at all times that's not circus and WW. I'm not saying there's not a venue for that stuff. But something that, again, puts Sioux City kind of on that, like, wow, that wow factor as all these people are driving by. that entrance of our community. Last thing is, from the suite owners, I think the best way you can take your temperature, when's the last time that Jen did a survey on the suite owners?
As far, like, if you're talking about like
Are they happy with the stuff coming in?
I think we regularly get feedback that they would like.
I'd like to see Jen give us an update where she gets on the phone and calls the suite owners, and let's get some feedback on what they want to see.
Sure.
They seem to throw the dollars around, and we're losing or we're keeping, and that'll give you a temperature too of if it's lining up with the acts that we're bringing in, and so no pressure at all. But,
Yeah, right.
But
Yeah, none taken.
No. You guys are, you know what you need to do, and if we can give you the tools, I look at it as marketing, and that's just part of the city morale, that just we need to elevate. It's part of the new movement. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Again, some of the operational highlights. Obviously, you guys all know that we had our roof replaced over the summer after having some water interruptions at a couple of different tournaments over the last couple of years. That is now being completed. We also have the new outside lighting system has been turned on and has been functioning, and has really added some pop to the building. We get a lot of compliments from people driving by at how much they notice the building now with the spires lit back up after being off for a few years. We've also done a number of mechanical items in the building. We've rebuilt the heating pump for the boiler systems. We've replaced some pumps or condensers in our refrigeration systems for the warehouse and in concession stands. We repainted and rebuilt the bollards for the access road near the railroad tracks so we can help maintain that quiet zone through downtown. We had to restore our water softener system. We are down to one water softener operational, so that was one of our big items this fall, is making sure we had all 4 of those up and operational. So we replaced a number of divert valve diaphragms and hydronic controllers. We updated our HVAC control system to the newest version. We were out of date by about 3 years, so that's got update. Now we have remote access to that, so we can monitor it from home if necessary to maintain the temperature in the building and manage the facility easier. Obviously, there's a big push for sustainability and environmental consciousness, so we've been slowly, as we can, replacing all of our incandescent lights with LEDs. The main arena is pretty much all LED now, and most of our offices are transitioning to that point now as well. All of our external lighting is LED now as well. We added some new cocktail tables, stools, and banquet tables for our premium areas, such as the party zones and goal zones that are for hockey at Bandits games, to create a more elevated experience for the people paying for those special areas. We did some eddy current testing on our chillers. That is where we learned that we needed to rebuild the chiller, which was in our CIP that we talked to you guys about a couple weeks ago. And then our guest services and operations team did a first aid and AED training. We're trying to get a CPR training done as well so that our staff is ready in the event of an emergency with a patron or with an employee. And then our corporate partners at OVG are working to do a sustainability survey. So I'm getting ready to appoint one of our members of our full-time staff to our sustainability committee, and they'll meet quarterly with other venues online to go over items in the buildings to help us become more sustainable, more environmentally conscious.
Right, and then to update a few things on the convention center side of things. We were excited last year to welcome back the Siouxland Chamber Annual Dinner. A number of you were in attendance of that event. It had been out of that building for 2 years, or actually just one, I guess it was out of the building for 1 year. And I think that the event just went great. I think we got a ton of feedback, positive feedback on that particular event. And, you know, that event is just, it's really important to the overall outlook of that facility. You know, there's 1,400 people that attend it, and really important to the overall reputation of the convention center. So I think we were excited to get that event back, and overall pretty happy with how it went.
What are you seeing for short-term and long-term impact of convention centers? And how does it tie to Matt's facility with the Seaward Triumph facility? How do you blend activities and use?
I guess I would answer it that way. I think they're complementary facilities, right? So the Expo Center is great for youth sports. It's great for expos. The Convention Center is great for conferences, conventions, that sort of thing. So I think the use is maybe a little bit different. What I would say, and we'll get to a couple things on the Expo Center, for instance, but like we do a couple of volleyball tournaments at the Expo Center annually, which frankly are probably the biggest events to happen in Sioux City all year. Youth sports particularly has really exploded over the last several years, and folks traveling into the community, they go to restaurants, they stay at hotels. If you go out to a restaurant anytime there's a youth sports tournament, whether it be at the Expo Center or the Convention Center, long lines, wherever it is, you can't get a reservation at Texas Roadhouse, right? Because it's just packed with families. So I think they serve different purposes, the types of events that they can host. On the Convention Center side, one of our main focuses going forward is really focusing on midweek conference business, which has been lacking, frankly, over the last couple of years. So from a long-term standpoint, that's part of our overall strategy of really focusing on that because, listen, I think the long lines in the Expo Center and the various sporting facilities through Sioux City do a great job of getting folks to travel into town over the weekend. I think where the Convention Center complements that is if we can generate events and business during the week. So that's really the main part of our focus in the long term at the Convention Center. So I was kind of spitballing that, but I think our primary objective, or I feel like the directive that was given to us when we took over the Convention Center in 2024 was to make some improvements to the overall event experience that people were having when they came to the Convention Center. I'm really proud of the work that the team's done. I think by and large, we've really changed the reputation and have improved the overall event experience at the Convention Center. I just, spent a little bit of time talking about it. I think we're not to where we want to be yet as far as attracting major midweek business. So that's a major part of our strategy going forward. And then, obviously continuing to look for opportunities to streamline operations, increase revenue, and overall, reduce the operating subsidy to that building.
Nick, do you, and I have a lot of experience with this property, right? But do you guys have a salesperson like that reaches outside of the area? I know you have somebody on site, but.
We do, yeah, we do, yep. So we have a salesperson based out of the Convention Center, and she's doing local and regional stuff as well, so we don't divvy that up. We have a part-time employee based out of Minneapolis that also helps with those regional pieces of business. And then we have really good relationships, particularly with the Courtyard attached. They're getting a lot of leads and they're reaching out. So we work pretty regularly with them and their sales team on attracting events from outside of the local area.
And maybe you and I both can put some pressure on Explore Siouxland to bring in some.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of opportunity with Explore Siouxland. Obviously, we've been on that board together, and I'm super confident with Stacy and her coming in. But I agree. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to work with Explore Siouxland on really generating and bringing business to Sioux City.
All right, we'll go for the operational update. So over the past 12 months, we've done a few things in the venue. Obviously, a lot of you are aware we redid the atrium. So we hopefully got rid of all the leaks now finally. We had to have the contractor come back and fix a couple additional ones where some bolts didn't get tightened down properly, so we got those resolved. The biggest thing is we've had some unexpected costs or repairs. The HVAC system needed a little love, so we've had to put a little bit of money into the HVAC system over the last 12 months. There was a ongoing glycol leak in the heating system that we finally got resolved. It looks like it had been they tried to repair it a number of times. Finally, we replaced the section and actually had to refill the system. We replaced a number of monitors outside of the meeting rooms so that when customers are there for their event, the signage directing them in what room or what other events are happening. We had to replace a number of those because they just wore out from being on all the time. So we're cycling them more regularly. We replaced our old water fountains with new water fountains and bottle fill stations, so we don't have to use bubblers in as many of the rooms, so people are able to bring their own water containers and fill those for their events. Redid the grout lines in the kitchen. We implemented a new preventative maintenance program that across all 3 venues that allows us to schedule preventative maintenance, such as going up on the roof and cleaning the filters out on the towers, and making sure, especially during cottonwood season, all that gets sucked into those. It takes about 4 hours to get them all clean when we're up there doing it. So it's very time consuming, but it's a necessary thing to do to make sure that the building maintains its ability to cool and heat. So that has been one of the big things. The nice thing about that new program is it also allows us to track the repairs and track who's assigned to those repairs and manage the cost. It can also allow us to schedule out. So if we know we need 20 filters and we take them out of the inventory, it reminds us to replace those 20 filters so that the next time we have that in the inventory to continue working. And then just this week, we just completed the painting of meeting rooms 1 through 5, which are the lower meeting rooms in that hallway, and then painting of meeting rooms 6 through 8, which is the upper level. And then shortly here, we will have the carpet replaced in meetings 1 through 5. We didn't do the carpet upstairs. It wasn't in real bad condition. And there's actually colors in the carpet that blend well with the color that we chose for the walls in the lower level. So for now, we're going to leave that, and that'll be something that we do in the future.
And then I know we're focused mostly on Tyson and Convention Center, but we just wanted to make a couple notes about the Orpheum and the Expo Center. So, you know, again, super proud of what we've been able to accomplish at the Orpheum over the last year, particularly Bob Dylan, who played in Sioux City in 2025. It was one of the highest grossing events ever in that building, sold out in just a couple of days. So, you know, I think that was a really cool event to have. And then, Craig, to your point of you know, working multiple venues together, one thing we've started to try and explore opportunities, and we had the Iowa Library Association in at the Convention Center last year, and we did a separate event at the Orpheum through the local public library system. They did like a little happy hour meet and greet while we had all the Iowa library folks in from the state. So I think that was a great way to highlight our city, not just in the convention center, but get them out of the convention center, get them into the city a little bit, and, you know, see some of the other venues. So, you know, we've certainly looked for opportunities when we have people in town going to one event, you know, can we get them out of that facility and, you know, share some of the other things with them.
As I've shared, Nick, every brochure you submit to any interested party needs to either start or end with a tour of Palmer Candy Company. It's that simple.
Noted. We actually, with the Chamber and the CVB, we had a site visit from a major show today, and they brought Palmer's Candy. So.
That's great.
And just a note on that public library, says, a lot of great comments
great.
for that week.
Good.
Yeah, there was a lot, people were out.
Yeah.
Doing some things,
Yeah.
so you're so right on point there. So good job with that.
And then just to, you know, note at the Expo Center, again, we do a couple of volleyball tournaments there each year that, you know, from an overall number of people coming to the city and, you know, overall economic impact are really right on par with NAIA, to be honest with you. They don't quite get as much of the media attention and so on and so forth, but, as far as the number of people that are coming into town are really right in line with that. So, we have a really strong partnership with Matt and his team over there of utilizing that facility. So we've got the home show, the outdoor show. We've got a USA Gymnastics regional event that's coming up in April. Again, I think Matt and his team have done a great job of, utilizing that space with youth sports and turf events. And I think our partnership with him of coming alongside and doing mostly the turf out events has been a good partnership of keeping that building.
Last comment real quick, just, I know we talked about it, that Greg and I did with has it been 6 years since you partnered with Hard Rock on a major event?
Yeah, I think it was 2022 is the last.
4 years? Okay. Yeah,
It was-
let's shake them down a little bit. When we're talking about, getting some promoter money. They can, we fill their place up when we fill our place up. So again, they're great partners, and maybe they just need to be asked a little more aggressively. So let's make that ask on them. It'd be wonderful. So great. Thanks, guys. Good job. No
Great.
pressure
Thank
at
you.
all. Think
Yeah,
big.
appreciate
Think
it.
big.
Good job, guys. Thanks, guys.
Homeless Task Force.
Rex Mueller Police Department. Captain Groves is here also to answer any other questions. Most of this information in detail is going to be with the info to council this week, so I'm not going to go over all of it. I'll just hit the high points. The period that we're covering is January 12th through January 25th. A few updates. Task Force leadership met with the County Attorney's Office on January 16th to discuss some of the challenges. We're also going to be meeting with some of the judges, local judges, on January 20th to address our concerns about sentencing and the need to effectively partner with them for maximum impact. Captain Groves is going to be meeting with local hospital officials on January 27th coming up. Encampment activity, encampments located during that period of time that I quoted to you, 13. Cleanup operations during that time, a total of 10 cleanup operations. Mike Collette advised me of a new one that we're going to get on top of, which I reached out to the task force to let them know about that, so we can get right on it tomorrow. Outreach and engagement, new individuals contacted, 14. Partnerships and coordination, we continue to work with the same group, but a group of individuals that we did on our first report out, but we will add any new names to, whether it's organizations, individuals that we partner with, to that report out to council when that occurs. The barriers obviously tend to be the same: limited affordable housing, encampments, and then reestablishment of encampments even after cleanups. Those subjects who, even being offered available services, do not want available services, and chronic trespassing and ramps, skywalks in the MLK. And in regards to that, Captain Groves has been actively communicating with city legal and parking enforcement to discuss potential options as far as how we can more effectively notice people for trespass, officially notify them so that when arrests need to be made, we can do so lawfully with prior written notice for those individuals. If you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer those. I do have a list of successes, but again, that's going to be in the info to council this Thursday when you get it. It just kind of outlines a handful of, yet another handful of really good stories of the task force going over above and beyond to make referrals, to get people services, to give them a pathway. And with any luck, those are individuals that if they're given a pathway out of homelessness, we won't be repeatedly dealing with them because we will have found long-term and meaningful solutions. And those are the ones that we like to see, those success stories that show that the work of the task force is working.
Chief, I think you're making great progress, making really good headway identifying the issues. I appreciate that you've been receptive to both suggestions and commentary that we provide, but also adding to your group of participants, those that we see in the community or that reach out to us. One side note, Mike and I are in the process of putting together a healthcare task force, and I think the healthcare task force can have a really significant role in your homelessness task force. I can't say that real quick, but as we continue to process with the healthcare task force, we'll ask them to participate and provide you input. And I think there's one healthcare provider in the community that maybe doesn't get identified as necessarily as part of our community as you look at Sioux City, Sergeant Bluff, the Dunes, South Sioux City. But I think there's an important player in the Winnebago comprehensive health care system. So I'd like to see them part of the dialogue as well. And I think they should be part of your dialogue too.
It sounds good. We're already, again, Captain Groves, near the end of this week, will be meeting with some providers with Unity Point. Obviously, Siouxland Mental Health is on board, and the MCAT, which has been deployed quite a bit with the task force team. So any other partnerships with healthcare in the area would be definitely beneficial.
Thanks, Chief.
You may have said this, but have we looked at how we want to sustain this and the sustainability of this program?
Well, and that's, so the last couple of months have been a trial period, and when we came to you last, that was a request to continue this, to continue gathering data. And our hopes are that as we chronicle our successes, talk about what we've done, look at the calls for service, kind of try to find baselines to see if this has been successful, we'll then come back to you and ask you if you're going to continue to fund this. We took officers out of our regular complement, which created stressors for our department. The other departments that provided personnel also pulled people from their regular complement. So at some point in time, we're going to have to discuss the viability of ongoing funding for this concept. Thus far, I've been very pleased with that. One thing I didn't mention, Captain Groves had asked our crime analysis unit to track 20 of the frequent flyers, so to speak, people that are causing us a handful of issues, and the tracking on 112 through 118, the 20 subjects identified, there were 26 contacts resulting in 13 arrests. 2 of the 20 had been arrested prior to and are currently in jail. So those are the, who is, and a lot of times, I think Captain Grove last time, those folks are the ones who are causing us a lot of problems. And those are the people who aren't accepting of assistance, don't want assistance, not willing to be provided with a pathway. And so we are trying to track them and determine how often we're dealing with them. But obviously, people that we find a pathway out of homelessness and some referrals are hopefully people that we don't deal with again. So one would think that our calls for service with a certain population will be going down if we're effective at this. So,
Chief, first, I know you didn't ask for this assignment, but you're embracing it. And like Craig said, and I know Esther said, thank you for taking this on. It's not easy, and you're, from our perspective, you're kind of the main tool we have to start cleaning this up. So it was great. I was going to go the camps themselves. You said 10 out of the 13 that were identified you knocked out, which is fantastic. We've got an opportunity. 13 that never should have been there. So I think this what the cold weather is going to give us as a community as an opportunity is to get rid of all the camps as we get through the winter time. And then that way when spring comes, when they pop up, just like dandelions, if you get on them right away, we can keep it down. So I applaud that work that you're doing there of work that, again, those camps never should have been allowed. This council's direction is to not allow those to be in our community. Second thing is, when you talk about personnel, I know it's putting stress on you. If the results are getting what we think we're starting to see, and I know that Jill, you're going to ask for some more dollars in your operating budget to help continue your program, to help relocate some of the people that they can find the support they need with friends and family out of this community. The council's looking forward to seeing that portion of your budget in the operating. And then lastly, you sent out the loitering memo.
Yes.
On that. Again, I'm going to keep pushing here a little bit because I do think this is a tool. Could you present that memo briefly to the council real quick with us and kind of give us the highlights on what you discovered on the loitering side of it?
Well, and this was a discussion between city legal and our department as to what we thought was viable. Now, one of the things is Iowa restricts how much incarceration you can mandate for a simple misdemeanor. Also, I would point out that no city ordinances currently have a mandated jail sentence attached to them. City ordinances are generally lower level. Now, as far as if you were to look at loitering kind of in the tiers of criminal activity, I would tell you that loitering is probably below criminal trespass, which criminal trespass a few years ago was essentially decriminalized at the state level for simple criminal trespass, where no other offenses were present. But we're looking at a handful of things. We're looking at Eighth Amendment issues, that the punishment for those not be excessive. We're looking at First Amendment issues and Fourth Amendment issues about moving people along. How do you decide? It's very challenging to ask the officers that somebody lingering in an area.
But I think I want to stop you there, because the definition you send over was great. It was right out of Webster, which is basically loitering, which is standing around. That kind of seemed to be the theme of the memo. But if you look at from an enforcement standpoint, it goes a lot deeper than that. It goes to harassment, nuisance, constant loitering and hanging in certain areas. I mean, there's other tentacles that go farther than the definition of just standing around from a loitering perspective, because public safety then becomes in part of this. And that's the angle that we need to take of it, because the people downtown just don't feel safe. That's why the businesses that are leaving is because they don't want their people in the ramps. They don't want their employees walking out after dark. So this isn't just a loitering issue or a nuisance. This is a safety issue. And I think all I'm trying to ask is, as we relook at these loitering laws, and as you define, we have the ability to put ordinance, we have the ability to put penalties on, right?
We do.
Can you explain that to the council, that in the public, that we have the ability to do enforcement?
We do. We do. But the other thing is, we are not the beginning and the end of enforcement activity. We might write a local ordinance, we might arrest on that, but we are not the courts. So we cannot determine. We might set something in place, and if judges and local magistrates don't.
We'll worry about that. I'm just saying is that from getting them in front of the judge, we have to have a process. You know what I mean? And I'm just saying is that it's not just, and again, I guess we all want to fall back to the Eighth Amendment, undue punishment. You're not putting down any punishment on people. You're just saying is that loitering is not just standing around. It's a nuisance. It's a safety issue to the citizens and the business and the employees that are downtown. That's the angle I want to see as we write in the next few weeks, months, our ordinance to strengthen this. We're doing everything right, guys, and I applaud you, Captain. We really are. This is painful, but this is how we're going to fix this. Other communities can't do it. Everybody has it. We're going to do it, and you guys are on the right track. And I look forward to the update next week, Captain.
So Chris Groves, Uniform Services Bureau Captain. I only came up, and without getting into a lot of the down deep in a public, I understand transparency, but we don't want to point fingers at anybody either. There are, my personal opinion, we already have laws in the books that could probably accomplish the same thing with the loitering. Great. The problem is there's these obstacles that got we work through. We met with the county attorney's office. They identified some of the obstacles they see with the judicial system. But they understand our concerns, and they're facilitating the meeting with the judges. The hope is the judges hear the same concerns, and that we think that.
And Captain, that's why we're talking about it every week.
Yep.
That's why we're talking about it every week.
Nope.
That's how we're going to change
the whole loop. And we hope that they do. I will be honest. We've talked about some of the things we've done. Getting people into the same room has opened the doors. There's a lot of things that people were doing that maybe we didn't understand they were doing, or they didn't understand, whatever. It is a better understanding of everybody's role. And in the end, like I said, all I want to add is not to say that loitering is not a bad thing, but I think there are already laws there. We just got to educate how can we better apply them and have a better outcome in the long run. And I think there are already some there, and hopefully these meetings will accomplish that goal.
Yeah, and I think the public wants that.
Yeah, I think the timing of the question and the issue as it arises with Chief, as you're talking about the ancillary pieces of who you're going to visit with, whether it's the county attorney, whether it's the judges, trying to address these issues with them and getting their insight, because I agree with Rick in the sense that there are issues that are arising. I think, Chief, your memo was very good working with legal, and I thought it summarized a pretty parochial issue beyond trespass or loitering. If there are safety issues, if there are criminal issues, that's not what you're saying. And clearly there's an opportunity to address those issues. But I think, Chief, as you continue to work through your process and visit with other stakeholders with the issue, I think it'll help to give us the input on what next steps we take to address what Rick is raising.
And I don't know if the date came out. We do have a meeting set up with the judges, but it's just schedules, and we couldn't get it done until February 20th.
Right.
Great.
But it's coming.
It's lightning speed, man. That's great.
It's unfortunately not yesterday, but it's coming up.
Clean the camps up.
Hopefully, if the judges understand that we are looking for alternatives. So if the judges understand that we have found a pathway, we have found diversion, we have had some success with other things, our hope is that they can support us when we get to criminal matters, that we can appropriately deal with those. And Captain Groves has done a really good job managing this, but we have to give props. He and I aren't the ones out there each day. Jill's staff, Parks and Rec, the officers that are dealing with these folks on a day-to-day basis. One of the examples, which you'll see in the info to council, they're getting them rides. They're doing everything that they can to make sure that these folks have the tools to get services and a pathway, and sometimes that takes a lot of efforts for just one individual. So a lot of labor going into a very small population to try to find solutions. But the officers have the...
being noticed.
Yeah, the officers and the staff from Sioux City deserve all the props. We can sit here, Captain and I can sit up here and talk about it. We're not the ones doing the heavy lifting. They are, so.
It's kind of cool. It's the Heather, Officer Albrecht came to me just yesterday. No, that must have been Friday. Just all excited about it was a homeless person that came across, got him into treatment. They actually came and picked him up. It's a step in the right direction. So every time that one of those things happen, you can see the excitement in their eyes. It's just fulfilling to them that they're actually helping somebody and hopefully working towards the problem.
Stay aggressive. We got your back, man.
I definitely appreciate the work that you guys are putting into it. I sometimes don't know if we listen to the same thing, but, you talk about frequent flyers, and the fact that, and I don't know if this will ever be a zero-sum, situation, because, how do we identify homeless and who is homeless and all of those things. I think, we've said before that homelessness and panhandling, two different, separate issues, and loitering may be a part of the panhandling, who knows, right? But, as we continue, and I am appreciative of the conversations that we continue to have. However, how many times do you arrest a person? How many times does that happen before? What happens after that?
Well, and that's a difficult conversation. And that's the idea behind the zero tolerance with what we call too is the frequent flyers, the identified problems. If we could just continue to arrest them for a simple misdemeanor and they're back out the next morning,
right,
we're not changing the behavior. Right. Corrective action is obviously you're imposing the minimal amount of a corrective action measure to change that behavior. And if the judges aren't, and I'm not pointing the finger, judges, that's part of these conversations, is hopefully if they see them in the courtroom for the third, fourth, fifth, sixth time in a row, will they recognize we have to impose something a little bit greater, whatever it is, the minimal amount to change that behavior. And that's what those meetings with the county attorney and the judges are all about, so that maybe we educate our officers better, and when they're writing their affidavits, they put certain elements in there so the judges see that we're not just criminalizing being homeless, but this person has been arrested on this date, 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 and the getting right back out of jail is not working. Can we do something different? And that's what those meetings are
And I
about.
appreciate you saying that, because we don't want to do that. Right. We don't want to criminalize people for being homeless in something they can't control. So.
No, and that just came up. I'll say it over and over. The homeless issue is not what we're trying to criminalize. We're not trying to put people in jail for simply being homeless. It's the people that are causing the crime. If they're assaulting somebody, threatening somebody, doing something criminal acts that society shouldn't have to encounter either, that's what we're trying to change that behavior. But just being homeless is not the problem.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that.
Mitz.
Mayor and Council, we did do some research here over the last week and sent you some information about, we were asked to look at what other cities do and so on. And Daryl and his team made calls to, I think we ended up talking to 7 different cities in Iowa, similar sized cities to Sioux City. I think what we saw, well, first of all, one question was asked about what types of plan review that we do and if we accept stamp drawings. It looks like all the cities do pretty much the same thing. They require stamp drawings and then do local review from that. As far as the timing of that, and I can let Daryl elaborate on this, because I wasn't on the phone, he was on the phone on some of these, but it kind of looks like on the residential side of it, we're comparable. There are some cities that are faster than us. And on the commercial side, pretty much in the range that we're pretty much in that range. There's a lot of variables that come into play, and we believe we can improve how fast we move forward on applications and so on. But it was good to get kind of a check to see what other cities that are similar to Sioux City do. And I'll let Daryl talk a little bit more about that, what we saw. So.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that was kind of a variety of staffing availabilities throughout. Some of them had permit techs that are available to take the smaller ones so that it doesn't distract from the other plans examiners, taking them away from their plans that they're examining at that time. Some of them are looking at different types of review systems. Some of them they take it beyond the plans examiner, excuse me. They take it beyond the plans examiner. The fire marshals also review all these plans, which we feel would add a layer of delay to ours, so we don't do that right now. They look at the fire ones on the commercial side, and beyond that, and we take it all in-house for those kind of things. Also, obviously we've talked about the new software. We do have a meeting on that Thursday. One of the things that I think will help with that is during the application process, as you're submitting your plans online, you have X number of boxes you have to check. You have to fill in all the blanks, which I think will give us more complete submittals for our plans as they're submitted for applications. One of the things we've noticed is the initial review is done on a fairly timely basis, but sometimes we wait for those things. We're also going to be doing some things as far as making phone calls. If we've got a plan that's been sitting out there for a while and we haven't got revisions back, I'm going to make a call and I'm going to ask why. You know, was there something that we didn't understand? Was there something that was asked for? Or is there just a delay in the project? We've got a couple of them that have delays now because of other concerns, whether that have been from an engineering or a zoning denial, and they've got to get some more information. One of them right now had to have a variance done so that they could build the structure they wanted to build. Obviously, that delays us in actually issuing the permit as well. So along with all those things, I think you will see and notice in the timeliness of the actual issuance of the permits.
Now, we were asked particularly this last time about the residential side of things, and talking with Daryl and our staff, it looks like, I mean, we can respond in a couple days. There's no reason why we can't do that, and we do that for the most part. The issue sometimes comes in as to whether the information is complete or there needs to be some other thing done, whether that's a zoning issue or something else. But I think when we're talking about, we continue to emphasize improving customer service.
Hold on right there, Marty, because you're saying that a lot of times it's because information that it's not complete, right?
Yes.
So again, there's guys that are sitting there in plan review, and they're out the door, and then something will come up that's incomplete, and then it's the process of by the time you figure out the information gets back to you or not, versus, hey, if they get submitted, and if you're telling me that they're looking at this within 2 days, I can promise you the developer's going to be back in there, and you can sit down and redline things on the plans. You start penciling things on the plans versus making them go back and put them on the plans, which takes weeks and dollars and nonsense. So again, I go back to, we can say that there's things that are holding it up, but yeah, it's because they're coming from this side of it, because just ask the builder. If it's not on the plan, ask it, write it on, and let's get it out the door and inspections. And for the record, I'm not asking anybody to break any rules here or try to go around any codes, because other communities are getting it done. I'm just talking more about the efficiency of the process that I think, Marty, what you're talking about. So go ahead, continue.
No, and actually, what I was going to say was, we can be more proactive. If there is something missing, let's get it as fast as we can and take action on it. So I think that's what you're saying too.
2 or 3
Rick.
of those, because the guys never gave you a bond, for crying out loud. That's the minimum that somebody should bring in if they're going to build a house, Rick. If they can't bring a bond in, then they don't know what they're doing building a house in Sioux City. I read 3 of those were bond problems.
Yeah, there's
$100 bond and bring it to the city.
Yeah.
We find that quite frequently, or a bond has been expired and just hasn't been renewed because they haven't done a permit-type project for quite a while. We do run into those frequently, and I think
That's 90% of Mr. Mayor, is the bond's expired, or the other's expired. They're yearly things, and all they need to be is clicked, and there the permit sits. It's like, we need your bond renewed. I mean, again, that goes back to the speed of the dialogue. I'm sorry, I'm not going to defend that that's what's holding things up.
I'm not gonna defend, I mean, we do bonds every day for people. It's not that difficult to
No, it's
get
20
one. And
minutes.
if your bond expires,
right.
it's, it's not hard to get a continuation.
And it's only the initial bond that we actually have to have the hard copy paper on. Otherwise, we accept emails, faxes, whatever on the renewals. It comes that quickly.
Right.
We do, our plan reviews are also emailed as well as snail mail, both. Both versions are done. But I think one of the other pieces to this new program, to being able to do their submittals online, is they're redlined immediately. And you, as an outside entity, I mean, not a city employee, but as a customer, you're able to look at that immediately as well and see all of the notes and everything else right then and there.
Marty, I don't want to change the narrative, but I want to pivot a little bit, and because I think we're all saying the same thing, and that is that we just want to see the process improved. And I think you and Daryl, Gordon, Brian, Henry, I think you're doing a great job addressing the issues that we're raising. And if we need to, well, I'm comfortable if we want to continue these presentations on Monday. It's certainly Rick's prerogative to request, and I think it's helpful.
I do.
But at the same time, my sense is that these are practical issues. We know legally what we can and can't do. I've asked Nicole to give us a summary of giving us some guidance. And Nicole, if you'd like to share your thoughts tonight, that would be great. But to me, I think if we pivot a little bit and try and address, Marty, to your earlier point, that we could have permit techs that are reviewing this. If part of this process is that in February, when we start looking at the operating budget, you need person power to help you in your office, Daryl, if that's what you need, the cost of that will be overcome with the first project that we approve timely. And so I would just like to see the pivot be how we address the practical concerns as opposed to some of the larger issues, because I think we're in agreement with the larger issues already. But I do want to commend, I think you're all doing a great job of addressing the concerns and identifying what the issues are.
And as Darrell mentioned, we actually have our kickoff meeting this week with the software installation. I think some of it's already been installed, so we're kind of excited about that. We'll see. We've got to get a schedule in place for the implementation and the training of the staff to be able to do that, to be able to utilize it.
So let me understand, if you get this software in, guy doesn't have a bond, it's going to tell him that.
Yes.
Guy didn't submit truss, submittals for the trusses, it's going to tell you that.
Yes.
Doesn't submit a lamb.
No, it won't tell you that. It won't tell you that because that should be on the drawings what the lamb is and what the sizing of it. So
You still got to
determine
furnish a
loads.
spec sheet. I've been down the road with your department. I got to come back twice when I did a garage the last time. So is that going to, little things are what hangs up your department. You don't have a spec sheet on the lamb, guess what? You're not getting the plan approved, right or wrong, you're not getting that plan approved. If I don't have that spec sheet on that truss and the layout, not going to get a plan approved.
One of the things when you talk about the beams that we've run into is that they just don't submit any information that we can either attach to the code itself. In other words, we can go the prescriptive method. We can open up the beam tables in there, and we can determine between a paralam or a microlam, or if we're using multiples, full sawn lumber, 2x12s, whatever, what they'll span and what they will carry for loads. Our wind loads and snow load designs have changed, but the books are all keeping up with that. So if we have that information up front, yes, we do. We are able to do that, move that forward.
Floor joist spec sheet.
We can get those spec sheets.
You still got to do the steel beam in the basement spec. You got to do all that.
Yes.
So is it in that? Because if it's not in what you're talking about, the process is still going to be slow.
Do you have a to-do list? I mean, I think, Henry, you said a couple
Yeah,
weeks ago.
there's a checklist.
There's
It's
a
been online
checklist.
for a couple of years. When you're doing a residential dwelling unit, there's a checklist on there. There's so many different things that you can't, it's hard to put on a checklist. I mean, how many people know how to calculate a load-bearing wall?
The builder
They should.
But I'm saying, like, for them to
They
say, this
should.
is what you
Most builders
need.
don't, Rick, come on. They're relying on a lumber company and all that. You don't do your own spec sheet. Somebody's got to give that to you, the manufacturer.
Yeah, so I mean, there's things that, you know, you just are variable between every house. I mean, if you've got a standard square rectangular boxed house and you've got half-inch OSB wrapped around that outside of it, 99% of the time, you're going to hit the requirements you have to have for brace wall construction. You start putting big windows at the corner, you start putting big areas of walkout doors, all those kind of things. Everybody's got a great view out the back and they want to see everything. You may not do it. We may have to find a portal frame or something else to help make that stable enough structure to be able to do that. That's not going to be on the spec sheet.
So
it's going to be on the plan.
So what I'm asking is that checklist prior to turning in anything. When you walk in the door and these are the things you need, you know, we talk about bonds.
In general, that checklist has been online for a couple of years, yes.
Well, I just say this, I don't disagree that, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. They got a lot to do, but they could make it a lot easier and quicker. That's been my history, and I don't build that much anymore, but my history has been that they could make it a lot easier by saying, here, go get me the Lamb spec sheet and I'll approve your plans today, rather than tell me in a letter 2 days later that takes a week now to get. That's a mail, not your fault. It could go a lot faster by telling the people with an email. My God, everybody and their brother has an email.
Our reviews do go out with emails as well as snail mail, both. They're both sent out.
That's not always been your.
I can't, no, I mean, it hasn't always been there, obviously, but it has been for quite some time.
So Darrell, the question I have is when I got this memo.
Yes, sir.
Is I went down there and I said, who do our builders compete against? Do we compete against Davenport, Iowa City, Ankeny, West Des Moines, Ames, Waterloo, or Council Bluffs? No, we compete against South Sioux and North Sioux. Neither one of those is on here. I know they're not from Iowa, but that's who we're competing with when it comes about pumping stuff out the door, the permit process. So maybe next week we can have what North Sioux and South Sioux is doing, which I kind of thought I'd see today. And then also, I'd like to see some research on a provisional permit process, which means that if you've got everything right, but you know what, we're waiting on that truss spec, because guess what, Mr. Mayor? They don't send the truss specs out until you purchase the trusses. You don't purchase the trusses until you get approval from the plan. See, it's a catch-22.
I certainly got
So
it.
you got to go there. So I'm saying is that, well, we need to have find out what other communities are doing for provisionals, because I know in North Sioux and South Sioux, they've told us, you know what, start your footings, get them going. The permit will catch up. And it's not doing anything illegal. I'm not asking you to break code. I'm saying is that what other processes are out there? And again, let's start talking about the people that we're competing against in the ground, which is North Sioux and South Sioux. You know what I mean? On the process. And if we're doing this in 3 weeks, I mean, it looks great on paper. If we can hit that, we'll all be singing your praises here real shortly. But this is, you know, this is part of the process, guys, and I'm asking. Stay aggressive. Okay. Service. The field guys, walk them through it. And we're going to keep our foot on the gas. So I'm going to beat a dead horse. We'll see you next week. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Citizen concerns.
Thanks for your patience.
Yes, thank you. My name is Angela Warner. I'm a resident here, Sioux City. And my first thing I came here with is for funds for grants that we have and the taxes, like property taxes for people and sidewalks that people walk down at the streets, the pavings, you know, and the sidewalks. There's sidewalks. That's a big if between the people or the city owns, whatever we have you. But people would more apt to maybe just have, instead of money being spent here or there, maybe try to allocate it to a account maybe so that people can apply for a grant to get half of it back or something if they have a checklist of things done for the small business that could come in and do whatever sidewalk. Like if they get the sidewalk done, then they get half of it back with the grant, out of the grant money from a grant that would go to property taxes. And then a way to ensure that everything's done properly would be a checklist that would be coming from the small business concrete person that did it, that laid it. That was a good idea, I thought, maybe, but, and then as far as for the homeless, moving, because there is a criminality, that part of it, and as being recently subjected to it, that that's what I found too, on a natural level, that there is criminality. Just you keep, for like showers and stuff, portability. You got little lands, pieces, little parks. Make somebody donate portability. Go to here, Monday, Wednesday, Friday or something, because you break up the monotony then. And that might help.
Thank you.
All right, then that's.
Fair points. Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Penny Tobin. I want to talk to you about making utility vehicles legal to drive on the streets. The state of Iowa passed the law in 2022, and they pretty much covered every safety aspect there is. The three notable reasons there are accidents with deaths is no seat belts, speeding, reckless driving, and alcohol, pretty much with every vehicle.
Penny, can you back up and explain to us the difference, what a UTV is? Can you explain that to us?
ATVs, UTVs,
What you're
utility
talking, you're not talking
vehicles.
about putting ATVs on the street. You're talking
Yes,
about
yes.
UTVs.
The law, that Iowa says ATVs, UTVs.
Okay,
I'm specifically saying UTVs
okay.
because
To Rick's question, how does a UTV differ from an ATV?
Side by
well, I
side.
got a roll cage around me
Okay.
and I have air conditioning and heat and doors and lights.
One can be licensed and one not too, right?
You can't license either one of them.
Yeah, you can.
You, DNR stickers. We can't get a license plate on a UTV. But, I look at it as, I see electric bicycles, electric trikes flying down 75. I see mopeds going down 75 every day. There's nothing around these people. They're doing 20, 25 miles an hour. A UTV, I got, for the most part, a windshield, a back window, I got headlights, I got taillights, I got turn signals, I've got everything, mirrors, and I'm safe, safety belts. What do you got on a moped or electric bicycle? So these are far more safer than, you know, motorcycle stuff. I ride motorcycles, so I know. And revenue. 1% of the taxes that are paid for a UTV, 1% goes to Iowa cities. Then it's divvied up on populations, and I really don't know all that stuff about that, but I know we get a part of that. DNR, that's a registration every year. Our DNR goes to Woodbury County. So that's another revenue that we could look at. In 2022, there was 38,982 utility vehicles registered in the state of Iowa. In 2024, there was 57,394. I, as a resident, am not gonna go spend $20,000, $30,000 on a side-by-side when I gotta drive 3 hours to use it. You know, it's kind of a waste. But if I wanna jump in my side-by-side and run to Hy-Vee and buy groceries, I got better gas mileage, get to tool around the side streets a little bit, get to see a little bit of the city, and, you know, it would be an investment that I would more think about. And I've talked to a lot of people, and if we make them legal, more people are gonna buy them. And that's all I got.
Okay. Thank you. Nicole?
No, they can't go on highways.
No highways,
This is all side
75
streets and,
The only one I would like to see is Hamilton, and only because the speed limit is 35 miles an hour until you get outside the city limits, and then it kicks up to 45. Then you're outside the city limits. But Hamilton Boulevard, Gordon Drive, for the most part, is 35 miles an hour, you know, so
vehicles you're talking about have blinkers,
they
lights.
got blinkers, they got headlights, taillights.
Okay.
Like I said,
Thank you,
some
ma'am.
of them have heating, air conditioning. I just talked to a guy, he $50,000 for a side-by-side. That's a brand-new pickup truck. But his gas mileage outweighs driving his full-size pickup truck every day. So, justifiable, in his mind.
Nicole, do you have any background on how other communities have addressed the UTV issue, the ATV issue, and what's permitted and not?
Sure, the city would have to pass an ordinance allowing it. In the past, I believe the police chief and I have been asked to render an opinion to the council, and perhaps the police chief's opinion has changed, but at that time it was not recommended.
No, we've done 2 prior presentations, and I could give it to this council again. I would be opposed to ATVs and UTVs on city streets. I think the negatives far outweigh the benefits for those individuals that have them. I think we would then be forced to address the issue. I think good owners like this young lady is probably wouldn't be our problems. It'd be the ones that would not upfit theirs for the proper signaling equipment, et cetera, et cetera. My opinion on this hasn't changed. Obviously, it's a council decision, but I would be in opposition to it.
Did you give that presentation for us so that?
I'm sure I still have it.
See, I not to disagree, but.
You're welcome to disagree.
Can you speak up next to the microphone for me? Right, just right up next to that mic.
I see people doing wheelies on motorcycles and just driving erratically. And I know several people in Sioux City that have side-by-sides, and they might drive 4 blocks to come to a shop or to the convenience store, and then they drive home. They're respectable people, and it's gonna have to be, law enforcement's gonna have to treat it just like the idiot out there zipping around, you know, doing 75 miles an hour down Hamilton Boulevard. It's stupid. So that's just how I see it.
Yeah, the chief get you the information.
Yeah. I'm assuming you have some empirical data that you can share with Ms. Tobin?
I can, if it'd be easiest, I can just resend my presentation to the council, and you guys can watch it at your leisure.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Scott Bishop, and I am a UTV owner. It really sucks when I live on the east side of town, and I got to plow snow on the west side of town. Anywhere else in the state, I could actually jump in my side-by-side and go across town. Here, I got to load up my side-by-side onto a trailer, go across town, unload it, for what? The vehicle, as she stated, it's actually safer than a moped, safer than a motorcycle. I've actually looked at, in Des Moines, believe it or not, in Des Moines, it's legal. All surrounding Des Moines, it's legal. Council Bluffs, it's also legal. I've got 2 of them, actually 3. I am the guy that instead of staying in Sioux City, I am loading up and getting out of town for the weekend and enjoying my side-by-sides because I can't do it here. Why? There's no matter where you look across the river, it's legal in South Sioux. It's legal in North Sioux. It's legal in Des Moines, if we want to stay in Iowa and talk about Iowa. Bettendorf, it's legal, but not Sioux City. There's no rhyme or reason why it should not be legit here. Me personally, if it doesn't, I'm actually going to move outside of the city so that I can enjoy them. Why? I've got $80,000 tied up in investments that I can't get in that's safe. It's actually safe. Besides the seatbelts, they come factory with seatbelts. Anybody that knows anything about off-road riding, one of the first things I did, I've actually got 4-point harnesses. That's way better than a seatbelt. Over both shoulders and around the waist. I'm not going anywhere. My wife, she's not going anywhere. So there, 90% of the people, would you say 90%? 80% of the people, once you get a side-by-side, you sit there and you upgrade it.
Yeah, that's the first thing people do, yeah.
Most of the time, it's safety equipment. The problems that he has, I would bet, because I've talked to a couple officers, it's juveniles. The state law says 18. You got to be 18 just to drive one anyway. Are these juveniles 18 years old anyway? Is it going to make a difference? What's frustrating, you can legitimately ride a horse down Hamilton Boulevard, legally, in this town. I cannot spend $50,000 for a vehicle and drive it from the east side of town to the west side of town without threat of getting a $70 ticket. 100% legit, insured. That horse, is it insured? Everything I got is, but it's legal for that horse. That's not right. And I'd like to see Sioux City move into the new age.
And need you to wrap it up, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, all. Broken record. Oh, excuse me, Brett Watchorn. Once again, just for the record, I don't remember there being a 3-minute time limit on the First Amendment. Just saying. Other than that, I really enjoyed the budget meeting 2 weeks ago. It was a lot of fun. Really happy to see you guys actually making some headway and cuts. God, beautiful. If only we could expand that. Other than that, oh yeah, broken record, right. So I still implore you to address possibly changing the meeting time by only an hour at most. 4 to 5 p.m. would be fantastic for so many more people. Other than that, you said, Craig, I thought you said you didn't hear any other complaints about the auditorium. I wasn't here for my main complaint, but...
You know, Brent, every meeting we've had, you have misquoted or misstated. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe it wasn't you. My bad. My bad. I was...
But I'm getting concerned that every meeting we have, you theoretically quote me, and it's either nothing that I said or 180 degrees incorrect. So if you're going to quote me...
I'm paraphrasing. Thank you. Jesus.
Well, if you're going to paraphrase me or quote me, please make sure it's correct.
I'm just making sure I'm addressing you because you're the one I heard just a few minutes ago say it, but it's fine. Like I said, you guys hadn't gotten many calls group-wise about other complaints around the auditorium. If that wasn't the...
What I specifically said to Nick was that I was getting phone calls, and the frustration that I was hearing was there was a lack of events to be able to adequately use their suites.
I understand. My apologies.
So please, if you're going to quote me or paraphrase me, please do so accurately. All right?
I'll apologize, I guess, but the thing I would have added to that complaint is what I was going off of. Another complaint that I personally had, but I wasn't here to actually address it when it happened, is the loss of the rock climbing wall. That was a huge loss for that entire building and the area, in my opinion. Let's see, made me lose my train of thought. That was that one. The ATV thing. The ATV thing's a great idea. That should be, when it comes to safety, I will address Mr. Mueller, and I'll just say, anybody who would give up liberty for a little bit of safety deserves neither. But that's just a given in this country. Other than that, yeah, thanks. Once again, implore the changing of the meeting time and look forward to more budget cuts.
Thank you. Anyone else? Rick?
Brief tonight, Mr. Mayor. The Tom Pingle had to pop out. So, Mike, if you want to take notes on this, what I was going to ask him is, I know we're this wastewater treatment plant that, again, it's what we inherited. What I'm asking for is, did the final budget come in that was due in January? Did the final budget numbers come in from Kiewit? Is Kiewit ready to sign a GMP, guaranteed max price at $275? Are they ready to put their money where their mouth is there? I hope they are. They're good. And then I would like to see if they brought it down from the original 407. Again, they keep saying they're not changing any scope. I'd like Tom to update us. Have they changed any of the original scope? And if so, have they pushed it into phase 2 and 3? That's a big deal that this council's gonna have to deal with. And then if they have changed this, if they did come in above the 275, and Tom will know that, have they, has the rate projection been updated based upon the new estimate? So have they updated the rates projections, which are important? And if so, is it ready to go, and when? When are they gonna send it to bid? I just, as a construction guy, I just have this, my feeling tells me that this is being slow played a little bit, because we're going to get to a go, no go when it comes to who can bid this thing, and we don't want to run the clock out on ourselves. If they come in over and we run out of time because we've got obligations now, I think we need to, we just need to where they're at. Next week, we need to where they're at, hard numbers where they're at. And then lastly, for next week, the continued updates that we're getting are great. I think the public appreciates it. We're going to keep those dialogues going with the same people. And then I'd love to see the Art Center and the museum, Steve and those guys come in and give us a little update on the art museum and before we get into operating budgets. I'd like the public to have a conversation about that. Okay. On top of everything else we've got ongoing would be great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Craig?
Mr. Mayor, I will be brief, but I hope you'll indulge me for just a couple minutes. I want to make a non-political, apolitical statement, and as I share my thoughts, this is not commentary from the balance of the council. I have not shared this with the council, but I felt it important for me to say that as a community, we need to share that our thoughts are with the Twin Cities community. We need to encourage calm and patience for the safety and security of all in that area. And I think we need to get beyond the rhetoric. This is not an issue of right and wrong. This is not a political issue. This is now about human life and civility. So I would hope that all parties, for the safety and security of all, are able to step back, revisit this process, engage in meaningful dialogue, and try to identify a constructive, practical solution that can keep everyone safe and protected, promote peaceful engagement, and a de-escalation of tensions and the violence in that community. Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. First and foremost, I want to thank Mike and staff and Teresa and those guys for your patience and flexibility and all of those things that go with it. You know, my goal is to make sure residents understand not just what we're spending, but why we're spending and how it really affects them today and in the future. And so you guys have done a great job of answering my questions and continue to answer my questions, and all of staff as well. And so thank you for that. Just a couple things. I want to congratulate the Railroad Museum on their recent grant. And it was nice to be there in attendance with the mayor and Julie to see them and the work that they've done with that. And also, just got a message today, the Spiro and the Sports Commission of receiving the state bowling competition is coming to town. And so those are the things that I applaud and just happy to hear. And so, you know, I'm thankful for this opportunity to serve. And so thank you, staff, and thank you, citizens as well, for your engagement.
The railroad deal was a big deal. I think they finally might get that old engine running, which is a huge, huge deal. Those volunteers there are incredible. And as I said at that meeting, and I sent Larry Obermeyer a thank you, this community would not be the community it is without Larry Obermeyer. And I don't want to single out one person, but he's probably written more grants than anybody, than any three people, and he's made a difference, and he's the most humble guy. It just embarrassed the heck out of him when you get a compliment. But and then Julie and I yesterday were at the guard unit. I know we have a lot of Army guards still over there. Unfortunately, they'll be there for another 6 months at least, so we need to keep them in our prayers. But I didn't realize we had about 100, I think they said 130 of our Air Guard members were also over in that same area. Very stressful situation, flying probably more hours than they should be refueling in that area. So it was good to get them home. There's still 30 of those members there. They won't get home for another 3 months. So our units continue to make sacrifices for our community, and we need to make sure that if we can help those families that are still involved, that we do that. So I move we adjourn.
Second.
Scott,
Aye.
Berenstein,
Aye.
Bertrand. Bertrand.
Aye.
Rayford.
Aye.